Hey, what's up, everybody? Your boy Tony Ortiz back again with another tutorial, and it's not for Bloodstain this time, it's for a different game. This is Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, and there's lots of good information out there about the game, but I wanted to do something that's specifically geared towards brand new players. So here I have a seed loaded up, and we're not going to play through it. You see the nice custom intro there. But I just want to take you through some of like what you're going to see when you first load up one of these seeds, okay? So the website will help you generate everything. I'll leave you to go ahead and look up a guide on what you want to select. But I just want to go through a couple things real quick with you that, aren't quite written down everywhere and, would be very useful to you if you're just going to start out and getting acclimated and stuff like that, getting comfortable with the game. So obviously new game will start the game. Objectives, we'll go through this little list here. So if you forget like what you've loaded up, you can kind of look through this and just double check that all this looks correct. The flag menu here will give you the exact seed, whether like how the modes, like the party, all the stuff that you've already set. So this is a basic Moogle Cup set of settings. This is the seeds that we basically have newbies start with. And pretty much everybody learns through this set of flags, right? So you can double check through here if you do all your custom stuff. If you want to come back in and like look at what you set up, if you don't remember, you didn't save a spoiler log, this is a decent way to look at like all the settings. Okay, and the config menu is the normal config menu in the game. Now if you haven't played this game in a long time, you played it earlier when you were younger, or you've played or a newer version, or you're just getting into this base from the beginning, I just want to go through what all these things do so that you understand what they do, because there's not really like an option here to give you an in-game description, which a lot of modern games have. So battle mode active and wait means that enemies, while things are active, will be able to take turns whenever they are ready to take turns. So even if you're looking through a menu, if you're selecting something like an item or a command, you're inputting a blitz, anything like that, if you have active on, enemies will just attack you right through it. Wait mode means that no one, including your characters, will act unless like the controller's in a neutral position and you're not in a menu or in an action that pauses the battle. Now there's not any way to like manipulate speed via this setting here, but you can actually make sure that like things happen in the order that you want by having the setting on waits. This is going to be the default, and you'll notice that a lot of things in the game have long animations, and while those long animations are playing, if you're just sitting on the battle menu without selecting anything, your character's action gauges will fill, and so will the enemy's action gauges. But if you have wait on when you go into the menu, whether it's magic, item, some specific commands, you can actually pause the gaining of action bars, but animations will continue to play out. And this is a really handy when you get used to advanced techniques, when you get used to fighting the final boss. Using the wait trick, as they call it, is very handy, because you can say cast an Ultima, which is a spell with a long animation, and you can have all of your characters gain their action bar, and as soon as the action bar of all your characters has been filled, you can then hit a menu with one of those characters that will pause the action gain for the enemy. If the enemy's behind you, what that lets you do is potentially get all of your other characters' actions out before they get their action. Whereas, all sorts of weird things can happen. I'm not an expert on how the action gauge fills and speed and all that, but it is definitely worth having this setting on. This is why it's defaulted to this. You can have more control over combat. Battle speed, this is how fast the enemy's action gauges fill. Your character's gauges are not changed by any kind of setting in the menu. They have their own formula and their stats. This is specifically for enemies, so you always want to have this on 6. I can't think of any reason you want to have this on fast other than maybe trying to like retort glitch through something, but that's like, I don't even want to go into that. So you want the enemy to attack you over and over and over. Yeah, this is going to be on 6. Message speed, you always want this on fast. If you're trying to play this quickly, you're going to want to mash through. So command set is window or short. And what this is a change of is we can show you in game. The command window style has like fight, your special ability, magic, and item, all in a vertical list like that. So you have to click up and down to go through all of those. The short command window sets your fight to north, your command to, well, I'm mirrored here, so it would be west like this, your magic to east, and your item to down. And it's a little bit hard to get used to if you're used to the other way of scrolling through a list. But this actually ends up being a shorter command. So like if I want to click fight on, like one turn, and then my next turn I want to click item, I only have to press down once. Whereas if I have the list view, I have to press down 3 times to go from fight at the top to item at the bottom. Or up if it scrolls through. I don't actually remember. I've been playing on short for so long that I don't even remember if you can scroll up through the menu. Okay, gauge on and off. This is the action gauges. You always want to leave this on. I mean, you want to see what when your character's turns are coming up. Stereo and mono. This is an audio setting, obviously. Cursor, reset or memory. So what this means is reset. When you go into a menu and you scroll down, you select something, you exit out. The next time you come into that menu, you'll be back at the top of that menu. Same thing with your character's action gauges. So like if you have the window command set on and you go down to magic and you cast a magic spell, if you have cursor reset on, the next time you come back to your character's turn, it's going to have it back at the top on fight again. And if you even go back into that magic menu, you'll be back at the top of your magic menu. Memory changes this and remembers where your cursor was, not only within a menu, but within the action menu itself. So like if I cast magic, the next time my character's turn comes around, it's going to be on magic again. And then if I click into magic, it's going to be on the last spell that I cast that I clicked on last time, when I was there before. So this is something that's really tough to get used to as well at first, but it will save you a lot of time. I think it's just raw faster in most scenarios. So I had to learn how to play with this because I wanted to give myself every chance possible before playing in a tournament. So I learned how to play with memory cursor just in the last basically 6 months. And now I won't go back. So there you go. Re-equip, optimum or empty. This basically is going to look at what do you want the game to automatically do for a character when you change what they can or can't equip. So like Genji Glove is the best example of this, or Gauntlet that changes like whether or not you can equip a shield or 2 weapons. If you have this set to optimum, the game will automatically take you to the equipment menu and optimize the character. If you have it set to empty, they will be empty equipped. This is a matter of preference. Since optimum takes you into the equipment menu, it's usually faster. But empty will give you more customization and control over what happens with the character when you change their like ability to re-equip or whatever. And so this is kind of a personal preference one. I usually leave it on optimum. Controller single multiple is if you have a second player, you can actually click multiple and then you can actually hit the button and you can assign certain characters to certain controllers. So like you can actually sort of kind of play 1.5 players. So like you can have a second player who can't control anything but some characters in battle, which is kind of neat. The magic order. This is how your spells are going to be arranged in the menu. And you can kind of just go through each one and see in the list. The A will be the stuff at the top. The B will be in the middle, and the C will be at the bottom of your magic menu. I typically rock magic order 4. This puts attack above healing, just because we use attack spells a lot more than healing spells, because there's just a lot less healing spells in the game. And you'll just find them a lot less. And then finally, the window is just changes what the window looks like, and the color lets you manipulate all the colors of whatever the window is. All right, so that's pretty much it for the menus. And, I'll leave you to learn about RPG mechanics and other stuff like that on your own. And let's go ahead and pause this so we don't have the menu music the whole time. But let's go over the probably most frequently asked question that I get in the game, and that's what opens what. And to illustrate that best, we have a tracker. I have a tracker here. And you'll kind of see, like, as I click on a character, it gives me a lighter gray. And then I can click on this check and all that, and then that, like, marks it. The auto tracker capabilities of the web tracker are very, very good. and I've been using them since I came to the game in a competitive sense. It is a little bit harder to get used to because there's no map here. Now, if you go back and use older versions of the tracker, some of them have map support. Unfortunately, none of these older versions are actively supported anymore. The only one that's actively supported by the community is this web tracker. So I would recommend getting used to learning how to do this just because it's the way you're gonna play competitive. Okay, but if you want to use one of the older trackers, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And I started using emo trackers version with a full map, so I could actually like visualize where the next checks would be and what's closer to what and so on. But again, that's missing a check, and there is Lua support to make it auto track, but you have to be careful, and you have to know the flaws of it when you're using it, because you can often forget that there's a couple things to do that are not tracked on there. And I just wanted to take you through all this tracker because this is a really good way to show every single character and like what checks they open, describe which check is what on this tracker, and then you'll have a full comprehensive list of everything. So um, the way we normally start in a Moogle Cup seed is you get 3 random characters. So let's just say we got Realm, Locke, and Setzer as our 3 random characters to start. All right. This little General Leo guy will be the total amount of characters you have. This little Esper in the middle will be the total amount of Espers you have. This dragon right here in the middle will be the total amount of dragons you've slain. This little imp guy is how many checks you've completed. You'll see as I click here, this won't go up, unfortunately, because this is manual, but rest assured it will go up on the automatic tracker. This is useful for things like, if you have a skip unlocked and getting a certain amount of checks, this is a thing to do here that tracks it for you, so you know how many without having to go into the menu. And this little treasure chest here is how many just regular treasure chests you've opened. And this is just more of a like personal way to track how many chests you've opened. It doesn't actually have any effect on completing the game for the most part, unless you have like very specific settings. And then this little guy right here, this is how many bosses you defeated. Some checks have bosses and some do not. So this is, again, just kind of like a little milestone for you. Then at the bottom row, we can just tell you these are all the dragons. Like there's nothing special about this. They are typically shuffled around in the base settings and a lot of the other settings, but the dragon you defeat will show up, not the spot that you pick. So this is very important to realize. So you're going to have to remember what dragon spots you've been to. Like if you go to the Opera House and you defeat the Dirt Dragon spot, whatever dragon is in that spot, say Gold Dragon was in that spot, it's going to mark Gold Dragon as defeated for you. I personally don't like this. I think that the tracker should go based off the spot, but maybe the way that the tracker reads the RAM value, that's the only way it can track this. That's my feedback for this tracker. So I just want to note that there for you because that's very important. If you forget, like, oh, did I go and kill the dragon that's over there? This will not help you. You're going to have to remember that or write a note for yourself and track that manually. Okay, so then next we've got these 5 checks in the middle here that are always open. So this man in the wall or the forest is the Zen thief that will sell you an item. This can be an Esper item. It cannot be a character. So that's what this little symbol is for here. This is the auction house guy, and he has a 1-2 so that you can know if you've bought both Espers. I believe in Moogle Cup he can have 1 Esper only, but on other sets he can have Espers. He can have more than 1 Esper, 1 on each world. And I think in Moogle Cup right now, as a recording, V2 in 2026, the auction house can only have 1, and it's random on what side. So whether it's balance or ruin side. This is the Kefka at Narsh check. So this is when you go up and talk to the spot where you do the group battle in Narsh on the balance side. There will be a sprite waiting for you there, and if it's a character, that's the reward you will get. And if it's not a character, if it's a different sprite, there will be some other different item there. This is actually a good segue real quick to describe what to look for. There's checks that we'll say are peekable and checks that are not. And a peekable check is a check where you can see what the reward is before you go and finish it. So there's a lot of things where like a character sprite would be involved. So like Sabin on Mount Colts, where you see Sabin jumping around. Realm In the Esper Mountain, you see Realm running and then run off the screen. Shadow, where you see him collapsed in his Veld cave. Normally, if you go into these areas, the check will show you what it is to a certain degree, depending on what the sprite normally would be. So if it's an Esper, Shadows check, which is normally him laying on the ground in the Veld, will show you an Esper. Realms check in the Esper Mountain will only show you a character. And then if it's not a character, since an Esper can't run right, it doesn't have the animations, it will be a sprite, a random sprite. So it'll be like a ghost or a Imperial soldier or something like that, or an imp robot. And from there, you kind of have to go and finish it to pick it up. But then, if you're looking for something specific, like I need characters to finish my seed, I'm good on items and espers, then you can kind of like, okay, look at that, skip it, and then leave. So that check, since there's a character sprite there that you normally talk to begin that battle, that sprite will be, if it's a character, it will be that character. And if it's not, it will be a different sprite. This is the Doomgaze. So technically, you don't need Setzer to defeat Doomgaze. You can just fly around their map randomly, and eventually that Doomgaze boss will come for you. I believe how it works is it actually randomly rolls a static position on the map, and if you fly into it without holding the Y button to strafe the airship, you'll just get in the battle. I think that's how it works. That's the last time I looked it up. That's what I read. I don't 100% know if that's accurate because I don't mess with the code in the game. But Setzer actually has an option to manually start this fight from the airship if you're on the World of Ruin side, which is pretty cool. So that's something you can keep in mind as well for your playthroughs. And then this one right here is the Tritouch Esper in World of Ruin, where you normally would get it. So if you go up there, even with no extra things unlocked, you can always take that fight. And but this is also these two checks here, the Bahamut, or I'm sorry, the Doomgaze and the Tritouch. These are locked to always be an Esper. They cannot be a character, right? So same with these two over here, the Thief in the Woods or the Auction House. These always have to be Espers or items. They cannot be characters. This check in the middle for Kefka at Narsh, this can be a character. So I'll try to remember to go through each individual check and tell you whether it can be a character or not. There are no checks in Moogle Cup settings, which are the beginner settings, that cannot be either or, except for dragons, of course, because dragons don't normally drop espers. But dragons, what dragons will do is they will automatically give you a high tier item at random from the high tier item pool. So in Moogle Cup, that would be like Illumina, Ragnarok, Valiant Knife, Atma Weapon, Minerva Armor, Genji Glove, Offering, any elemental shield of the three, and I think there might be fixed dice. I think that's everything. So there are advantages to killing dragons, even though you might be playing settings that don't require you to do so. You get a guaranteed high reward, item reward, that you can at least sell if nothing else. It counts as a check, so if you're building up towards trying to skip walking through the tower at the end, I can explain that towards the end. They're good for that, and they're also great EXP and great magic points. So if you need to learn some spells, you need to get some levels. They're often very good for that, and some of them are very quickly accessible or on their way to checking some other things, which makes them very easy to route in. So there you go. That's all the stuff generically at the bottom. Let me unclick each of these characters. Let's just go through each individual character. Then after we go through each individual character, I'm going to do a character tier list. We're going to talk about the characters themselves, their abilities. We'll actually have to do it a couple times. And I'll make sure to pause at the end. So if you want to screenshot it, you can. Please feel free to do so. I'm so annoyed whenever I do stuff on YouTube and I'm looking up stuff, and like the people who do the tutorials like don't give you like more than like a split second to like take a screenshot so that you can like not have to watch the whole video or like jump around and try to pause it perfectly, turn the speed down to half speed, stuff like that. So I'll definitely give you a few seconds on that. But let's get the new players acclimated with what opens everything in the game. So we're gonna assume that you've played through the vanilla game at this point, or you at least looked up a little bit about it. You know where all the areas are, like where stuff is on the map, and all the characters' names, and so on and so forth. Okay. So assuming you know all that, let's just go right on down the line. Terra. Terra, as you can see, has 5 different checks. These all light up. And some of these checks have multiple phases, so we'll cover those when we get to them. But this first Ultros right here, this is Leet River. So if you go into the Returner's hideout and you go and jump on the raft, or before I even get into details here. So when you get a character, that character opens up all of their checks. Now, the way that their checks are basically decided is if they were there in the game, if like that's their thing. So whether you found that character in that spot, or that character's like opens that spot normally or whatever. Like, so, you know, Terra opens Leet River because I don't know, she's the leader of the party when you go there, right? That one's a little bit arbitrary, but like the Welk check that she has that we have right here, this is the first fight in the game. So Terra is the only character you have, so she opens this. You find her at Mount Zozo. That's why she opens Mount Zozo. Okay, so I'm not here to debate should have checks and who don't. I'm just here to tell you in Worlds Collide, this character, if you're using character gated checks as a flag, this character opens these checks, and this is to lift the confusion of who opens what when you're a new player, right? Okay, so Ultros little symbol here, that's the Leet River check. So again, you go into the Returner's hideout, you jump on the raft, you sail down the water, you defeat all the enemies, the boss at the end. This is that check here. Maduin, this is the Imperial base into Esper Cave in balance, right? So all her checks are in balance except for the last one. All right, so for this one, if you get Terra, she will unlock the little building, the armory, I guess you would call it, in the Imperial camp. So if you go there, that's locked. If you have Terra, it's unlocked. So you have to walk through that to get to the Esper Cave anyway, because you can't actually land the airship, on the bridge or in that little piece of land. So you got to walk through anyway. So that's a great spot to go and loot. Then you have to walk through the whole Esper Cave, and then when you get to the end, you get the check. There is no boss or fighting required here. So this one's a pretty good one to do early. If you have her early, you get a bunch of gear. You can open a bunch of chests. You don't have to do any fighting. A little secret trick for this check: when you get to the very end, you get the check finish, and you get your reward. You can use a warp stone, but actually instead of doing that, you can actually walk back out and back to where you came into the very last room. And at the bottom of the screen, you will see like a little doorway that was not there before. And if you go out through that doorway, it will stick you into the very first room of the cave, and you can just exit. So that's a nice little strat for if you don't know about that, you can utilize that. Okay, Welk symbol, very obvious. The Welk boss check fight in Narsh on balance side. Go there with Terra in your party. The fight will start. There is a little cool subtle interaction with this later that I'll talk about when we get to lock. Then we have Rama here. He represents Zozo, top of Zozo on balance side. You just run up there. You fight the boss. You defeat the boss. You go up to the top, and that's that. And then Punabuba here is the Molbiz on the World of Ruin side. This is where Terra will rejoin you on the World of Ruin side. Fun fact about this one: if you go in the first house, that does not have where you start this check at, you go down the stairs. You go into that room. The little girl on the very she starts at the very top. She can path and change positions, but the little girl who starts on the very top in the section with the beds will actually tell you, please don't take Mama away in the vanilla game. Well, in this version, she'll say, please don't take item reward character or Esper away. So you can actually peek this one. This is a peekable check. So that's a cool one to do, if you have it. So now let's go back through these. Leet River can have characters. This can have characters. Yeah, all her checks can have characters. So none of these checks are restricted. Any of these could be a character, Esper, or item. Okay. Yeah. Let's just keep going on down the line. All right, Sabin. The Rizupaz, or however you say it, the piranhas, that's the waterfall. Fly to the waterfall. Jump in, fight the boss. That's it. The little soldier, this is the Imperial camp. Walk in the Imperial camp. You walk straight down. Kefka will be standing there. You talk to him. He runs to the side, starts the sequence, just like in the vanilla game. You run to the left, you talk to him again. You'll have a battle there. You'll have to win that battle. Then you'll have the part where Cyan normally would run onto the screen and start fighting soldiers. From this point, you will see the reward. So if it's this can be a character. So if you see it's a character, you know, you'll know what character it is. If it's not a character, it'll be some other reward. Now, what you can do, so you can't break the sequence, but you can save beforehand. And if you are looking for like a specific reward, like, oh, I have 7 characters and I have 8 espers, I'm looking for one more esper to finish the game. You can come in here, you see it's a character, oh, okay, reset. You know, if you reset and saved just outside, you can reset and bounce and not have to finish it. So there's other tactics like that you'll want to familiarize yourself with as well. Vargas here is Mount Colts, pretty obvious. Route Mount Colts. Unfortunately, there's no way to see what this check is. Vargas' sprite will run around. The Phantom Train is obviously the Phantom Train. Phantom Train is an interesting check because you can actually save ahead of time again. You can enter the forest from either side. I'd recommend entering from the side that you exit at, so the south side. If you enter through the south side, you can actually hold up and go immediately back through where you enter, and that actually takes you into the next screen that puts you right one screen away from the train. So it's the same every time. And you can run onto the train. And what you can actually do with the train, save outside, you run into the train and you go you have to, the little cutscene plays, you're stuck on the train, it's moving. You go to the right and into the last car. And in the last car, walking around will be your reward. So that can be a character or it cannot be. What's great is you can actually walk up. If it's not a character, you can talk to the thing. It'll give you the reward. Say it's an Esper. Okay, cool. It's an Esper. It's Terato, right? You can go into your menu, look at what the Terato Esper has for magic to teach you and what stats bonus it has to upgrade your stats on level up. And then you can decide, okay, well, I don't need to do this. Let me reset. And then if I do need this Esper, it turns out I can come back. So this is a really good check to pivot to, like, save split and all that. See what it is. And then, if it's really good, take it, finish the train normally. You have to run forward, you do the thing, do the switches, fight the boss, so on. And, there you go. And then lastly, this is the Crumbling House in World of Ruin. So you have to have Sabin to trigger this event. Be very careful with this check. If you walk in the Ruinside Zen Village with Sabin in your group, not even in just your immediate party of 4 characters, but in your group at all, it will trigger this. That's probably a good thing to mention as well. You don't have to have the character in your party to trigger any of these checks. They just have to be in your group. So like once you've recruited them and they're sitting on the airship, you can do all their stuff without them. You can open lock doors that Locke would open without Locke in your immediate party. He just has to be in your group, up in the airship. So be careful because you can't end this sequence without going in and finishing the quest, right? You can't leave the village. So you might want to save outside. You can go into Ruins End before you get Sabin and look at all the merchants, check the guy in the forest to see if he has a better price. He has 2 different prices on each side. So remember to check both. Unless one's really low, then just take it, right? But yeah, this sequence has a couple monster in the boxes, but technically there are no bosses to be fought on this one. So this is a one that you can do early pretty safely. You just have to make peace with the 2 monster in the boxes being lost and not being able to return to. The good thing is that this is a little bit higher level strategy, but monster in the boxes in almost every seed are completely skippable, and you probably should be skipping them. There's some tactical times to take them, and I can talk about that in like an intermediate strategy video at some point, but that's all you really lose from doing this check. So let's go back real quickly through all of these. Yes, every single one of these can be a character. They can all be a character. Okay. And yeah, okay, so that looks good. All right, so next we've got our girl Celeste. All right. So this opera little weight that you push off, that Ultras is trying to push off, is the Opera House check on the balance side. You have to talk to the Impresario to start the quest. You have to run over to the right side. You have to hit the far switch on the right to unlock the door on the left, and you have to run all the way back down just like vanilla. There will be randomized enemies that you have to fight, or if you're really good at maneuvering around them, you can just walk around them and get to the boss. You'll see us do it when we play. And then you will just go through that sequence. You get pushed off, you fight the boss. There it is. The little Celeste here in the chains, this is Celeste's check, free check where you normally would recruit her. in the vanilla game underneath the the balance Figuero village, South Figuero dungeon area. You do have to go. Some of these checks you can do on both sides. I'll mention them when they come up. But this one is very specific. You cannot do this on the world ruin side. You have to do this on the world of balance side. This is a good one though. It's a free check. We call these checks free when you don't have to fight a boss or any battles to get the reward. So that one's pretty good. And then the last one here is the Magitech Factory. Now there's 3 checks in the Magitech Factory. So you have the Ifrit and Shiva fight, you have the number 24 fight, and then you have the railway where you fight the big purple guy, and then you fight another boss, which is where the cranes try to stop the airship from getting you. And these are very interesting checks because the first 2, Ifrit and Shiva and number 24, cannot be a character. Only the last one, the third one, can be a character. You do have to fight the whole sequence on the train. You get off. There's another save point. You do have to fight the boss. So what happens is you'll run out. You'll go so far. You'll trigger a cutscene. The reward or character that is the reward will run up to you. And they'll say, "Hey, what's up?" The boss fight for the 2 crane arms will trigger. It'll be a random boss unless you don't have those things randomized. And then once you finish that, you will complete check number 3 and you'll get your reward. And I believe it automatically puts you on the airship. Some checks automatically put you on the airship. Some checks put you out at the front. It usually follows the vanilla game in that aspect. All right. Something unique though about check number 3 is after you complete the whole factory, Celeste will actually unlock the Magitech ability upgrade second half. So like normally with Terra, how Terra has those 8 abilities when you start in the vanilla game, and the other 2 Jabroni soldiers only have the 4 abilities. Well, when you get the Magitech ability in this game, we'll talk about abilities later. The Magitech ability only comes with the base level abilities, so like the 3 beams and heal force. To unlock those other abilities, the other 4 abilities, you have to complete the factory. Now, a random character is going to have this, so sometimes we'll not even bother to complete the factory because we get Magitech too late. Sometimes we'll get Magitech early, but we won't have Celeste, so we can't go complete it. Sometimes Celeste will be a starting character with Magitech, which is awesome. You just go do it right away because a lot of those secondary magic tech abilities are really, really good. Tech missiles specifically is very good. And then sometimes you won't get Celeste or Magitech at all. So it's just something that is special to note. It's something extra that that check unlocks, and it's good to know when you're a new player because nobody really specifically tells you. There's no real thing in the game that indicates to you kind of like, what it does. But what I can actually show you here with the game, unpause this, go back to the objectives menu here, is I can show you these flags right here. So this Magitech upgrade factory finish and the learn 8 sword techs from Doma Dream Awaken. These are special objectives that are available on the side for Moogle Cup flags. And what you can do is you can actually create your own special objectives and unlocks if you play around with the flags on the website where the randomizer sets everything up. So, all right. And yeah, so character here, and then character no on check 1 and 2, but character yes on check 3 for Celeste. Okay, Shadow. So the little man here is the Gao's dad, because you recruit Shadow, like I guess right there at that waterfall, or not waterfall, the well in front of Gao's dad's house. So this is a free check. You just go there, you land, you go in, you talk to the sprite, you get your reward. Also, a merchant will run up on a chocobo, so you can talk to that guy. I'm going to skip forward here real quick to the third one. This is the Behemoth. This is the Veld Cave, which we mentioned a little bit earlier. Pretty standard. Run in there, run to the end. You can peek what the reward is before you go into the last little room there and fight it. And there's a save point as well. So that's a pretty good one. This special note about this one, when you defeat it, you will wake up in Ruined Phasma in the bed at the top of Strago and Realm's house. So this is a really neat, decent check to, like, if you really need to check a shop, but you've been kind of putting it off. This is a great way to, like, do a check and then also land in a place with some shops that you can check and some treasure chests you can open. Phasma has a few more treasure chests than the average village does, so that's pretty good. And then I'm going to come back to the middle of the Shadow little sprite here, and there's a number because this is the floating continent. So Shadow is who unlocks the floating continent. Once you have Shadow in your party and you go to your airship controls on the balance side, there will be an option to go to the floating continent, and it follows the vanilla path. You can do it from anywhere, and just like you can in vanilla, and it will take you through the exact same sequence, right? You'll have the random battles, the random boss. You'll fall off the ship. You'll do another random boss, then you'll drop down on the floating continent, and then right there, where Shadow is sitting, and you pick him up in vanilla. That's check number 1. That check can be a character. Check number 2 is the Atmo weapon fight right before you do the statues cutscene, and that check cannot be a character. And then check number 3 is the escape sequence, and all you have to do is run to the end, and you'll get the check automatically. That also can be a character. So yes character, no character, yes character. You can mess around with the settings for how you want the floating continent to be handled in the randomizer, but in the Moogle Cup settings, the default is there is no timer, and you get the check automatically at the very end. Okay. Anything else special about these? No, I think we're good there. Okay, Cyan. This jerk right here, leader, I think his name is. Yep. So Doma on the balance side, you just walk in. If you walk in with Cyan, you'll automatically trigger the sequence to do the little Doma defense battle. You can actually fight the little soldiers on the side, and they will be randomized to a different enemy battle, but they will be the same battle. Whatever battle takes that place will be that random battle. And another note, like Terra's check the Esper Cave, the little pull switch that drops the little fight on you. That battle will be randomized, but once it's randomized, it'll be the same thing over and over. So that's a potentially good spot to grind for some levels if you need it without having to do open world battles, which can be more random. There's several different enemy groups that can spawn in different places and all that shuffled around. So a little special note for that Doma check again. You can fight those enemies on the side first. There's just no way to save in between, which makes it a little bit more of a risk. But you can also again do a save split here, because the sprite that you can get for a character will be your character sprite when you start the check. And if it's just whoever your lead character is, that means it's not a character as the reward. And you can if you saved right before you came in, you can just reset and then go somewhere else and come back if you need to. I'm going to do the same thing I did up above. I'm going to jump to the right here, the little roses. This is Mount Zozo. Mount Zozo is a very good check because it only costs 1,000 GP to get in there, has a lot of chests on the way, and there is a dragon on your way up to the very top, and you can warp out, which is really nice. Not having to walk all the way out is pretty great for a long check. Let's see. I'm just looking back through everything else. Yeah, we don't have anything. I'll just go back and mention the Magitech Factory, a common strategy if you don't need the Magitech unlock or the possible character look at the back end. We do often a first 2 checks to try to get Espers, and then you can actually warp out of the factory. You just can't warp out of the factory from the room with the Espers in it. And if you run up and hit the switch to trigger the cutscene to do the back end of the factory, the railway and then with Sid and all that, then you're stuck. You can't warp out after that. So that's a pretty important note as well. Okay, and then Cyan's Dream, Doma on the ruin side is the little like Rexel, I guess, is this the little sprite here in the middle. And this one's important because once you start this and you go and sleep in the dream, you cannot warp out. But this is one of the best sets of checks in the game because it's 3 checks, it's very fast, and only the middle can be a character. So if you're hunting for Espers, this is often a good place to go. And there's only 2 boss fights, and you get 3 checks out of it, which is pretty nice. So the first check is when you fight the triplets after you do the first dream sequence. The second check is going to be when you fight the second boss, which is normally where would be Rexol. And then the third check will be on the king's throne after you get out of the dream. So this one's easy to miss if you don't remember it's there. So make sure you go back up and hit the throne for the third check. And then special note on this one, you can see what the second check is going to be while you're doing the dream train. The character will, it's normally Cyan, as in vanilla, so that'll be jumping across the top of the train. You'll see that sprite, whoever it is. If it's a character, if it's a different character, will be running across. If it's not, it'll be like one of these other generic sprites, a soldier, an imp, ghost, whatever. Okay, Realm. This little statue is the Esper Mountain on the balance side. This one's peekable. You can see right away if it's a character or not by just walking into the first room, and you'll see Realm's action there, and it'll be replaced by whatever it actually is. You can warp out of this one as well, but you do have to leave the room that you fight the boss in. So the room you fight the boss in is not warp outable, but if you walk back into the previous room, you can then warp out from there. And then this is Ozer's Mansion, the Chardnook symbol here. So, yep, this one's pretty straightforward. You do the thing, you do the sequence, you get the check at the end. Yeah, nothing else special to be known there. These can both be characters. Yeah, okay. Go-Go only has the one check. You got to get big sucked by Zone Eater and fall into Go-Go's little sequence where Go-Go normally is. And you have to do that. It's bog standard vanilla. This can be a character. There's some strats you can use here to make this a little easier on yourself. If you find a way to reduce your party down to 1, or if you just go up to the airship and reform your party and only reform one character, that means only one character has to get engulfed. There are no fights necessary here, so you're going to Moogle Charm up whoever is going to be running through once you get down there, and then you just do the check. You can warp out at the end. You don't have to walk all the way back to the beginning and go up to the little light thingy. You can just use a warp stone or cast a warp spell. All right, let's go back to the top side here. Setzer, we already mentioned how you can manually trigger the Doomgaze check. The little Doge here, the little interceptor sprite. This is the cafe. What's the name of the village? Colligan. So Colligan, you can actually do this on either side. This is one of the rare ones that you can do on balance side or ruin side. And you just walk into the cafe where Shadow would be sitting, and you talk to that sprite, and then that's your reward. And then this one is Daryl's Tomb. Daryl's Tomb, you can just walk out of the back, so I would recommend not warping out, but you can warp out. You can walk down in, save. If the boss is too tough, you can warp out, and then come back later. So there's some strats to be had there. Yeah, these can both be characters. We covered already the Doomgaze character check cannot be. Okay, Gao. So let's see here. The little helmet is Serpent's Trench. You walk to where you dive into Serpent's Trench. You dive in. It's that. You get dumped in an IKEA. This one's kind of an interesting one. You can take several random battles or take only a few with a slower path, with the left and right. And then this also puts you in an IKEA on balance side, which puts you right into a village with shops that you normally wouldn't actually ever fly to very often. So this is kind of an interesting one. If you need to shop and you need some levels, this is not a bad one to go for. And then little Gao symbol himself here. This is finding Gao on the Veld. So how this works is you have to have 3 or less characters in your party. You do have to find dried meat. Normally, dried meat in MC is in 5 random shops, literally any 5 shops. So it can be the one that's on the airship. It can be any village. Any item shop you go to could have dried meat in it. So you have to find it. And then you have to win a battle on the Veld. And then you have to use the meat on whoever pops up. It could be a character. It could be a random sprite that gives you, an Esper or an item. Yeah, pretty straightforward there. The King Ed. Okay, so Edgar here. The very first one here, this is the throne. This is a completely free check. You just walk up to the throne with Ed in your party, with Ed in your group. He doesn't have to be in your party. And your reward will be waiting for you there on the throne. Side note about Ed, if he is in the lead spot of your active party, if you go to the shops in either Figaro Castle or in Ruin South Figaro specifically, all your stuff in the shops will be half price. So this is a pretty cool way to juice up your gear if you have Edgar. Then the little tentacle is the first castle check on the ruin side. So, you go to the cave, you walk through the cave, you jump in there. This one is peekable. So you can basically walk through. Once you get to the part where you have the cutscene where Girad would be jumping over on the turtle and into the castle, you'll see if it's a character, you'll see that it's that character, and if it's not, you'll see the other sprites. You do that as normal. And then after you complete that check, that opens the next check, which is, you go to the underground stratum. You say you want to stop, you get off. There's a few monster in the boxes here. There's a dragon down here, and then there's the statue that has Odin. So if you go up to the Odin statue and talk to it, you just get the reward. So technically, no boss fight required for this last check, but there is a dragon down there. Typically, you're not going to go down there and not do both of those things. But that check specifically, I don't. Yeah, that can. Yeah, all these can be characters. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the statue will be the other character. Like it'll be like a stone, like Strago or whatever. If that's it, that's him. I'm pretty sure it can be. I don't know why my brain is triggering something that says like this one can't be, but no, it can. It can. It can. Okay, lock. Tunnel armor, pretty straightforward. Keep in mind though, with tunnel armor, if you go into the South Figaro cave from the exit, you have to actually walk through to the point in the cave where you hear the rumbling for the actual boss sequence to trigger. If you walk through the correct way, as you would in vanilla, that will happen as you're walking to the back. So, typically you just want to go in that side. But yeah, you just defeat that boss. That's it. The little sign, the little weapon shop sign, this is referring to Ruin Narsh. So when you go into Ruin Narsh, you pick the little lock and you go to the guy that has Ragnarok. Then he goes, hey, I want to make this into a sword, or do you want to leave it the Esper? So you'll have a choice between two items here. And those two items could be anything. Can't be a character, but it could be an Esper and a random item, or it could be either one of two of a random item or random item. Now, you can pick whichever one you want. Whichever one you don't pick will be deposited behind Terra's Welk check. Okay, so now if you go back up here to Terra's Welk check, if you defeat the Welk boss and you walk into the room behind it where Welk actually was, there will be an NPC standing there with the reward that you didn't pick, whether that's an Esper or another item. And that counts as another item check, another check. So this little number here on the imp will go up, right? Yep. So this will go up for that. So that's an interesting way to get the skips. It's an interesting way to get that second item, maybe if you want it. He will also be able to unlock the door that leads down to the NPC that gives you the curse shield. The curse shield is randomized as well. They'll tell you how many battles are need to unlock it when it's given to you. You can also check with the NPC that has that he's in the middle of Balance Narsh and he runs from like the item shop over to like the little middle area. He'll actually tell you how many battles. You can check it very early. But so keep that in mind. But it's a randomized and a Moogle Cup, and it's anywhere from 2 to 16 battles. Typically, if it's like 6 or 5 or lower, we'll typically pick it up if it's early enough. And if we have a way to uncurse it, like I think it's a peace ring or ribbon for sure. I think peace ring is the one that stops muddle. It's whichever. I can't remember if it's peace ring or fairy ring, but it's the one that stops muddle and the other stat that like makes you not be able to act. That the shield does. Now this will tick up to 2 to signify that check that I just described, the one behind Welk. So if you do the one behind Welk, this will go up to 2. And then the Phoenix Esper here obviously means Phoenix Cave. This is a pretty long check. You don't typically see it. You do it the exact same way you do it in vanilla. You have to land into parties. You got to go through the whole cave. There's a dragon in there, but this one's super long. This one's one of the most skipped checks. But it can have a character, so there is a chance that you have to do it. All right, on to Strago, we have the Burning House. This is one that can be done on both sides. And pretty straightforward here. You can try to skip the random battles along the way. You just do it the vanilla way. At the end, you'll have a cutscene sequence. And you'll wake up in the bed afterwards, as you normally would. This one here is Abbott's Rock. Abbott's Rock will just be open. If you have Strago, you can go in and do Abbott's Rock. You need 22 coral to throw in the chest and get into the boss fight in the back. You'll know it's a character because if it's a character, you'll trigger a cutscene instead of getting your reward right away. Still not peekable though. And the Magic Tower here has 2 checks. I'm not 100% sure if this actually counts as 2, but the chest at the very top of the Magic Tower is always a high tier item. And there is a dragon on the way up as well in room number 3 of the 4. Well, technically there's 5 rooms, but there's one hidden on the first block. When you land here, you can actually see if Strago will unlock another character for you, because whoever's marching down in the little zealot line at the bottom, that sprite will tell you. This is a very specifically rare check, though, in that this check is so long that to balance it, what they've done in the development is that if it's not a character at the bottom of the tower, it will always be an Esper. It will never be an item. And you always have an item up at the top. So I guess this counts as 2, which I was not familiar with. This can come up strategically though when you're trying to stack checks for a skip. So I'm actually gonna have to try this out in a seed and see how it goes. See if this actually does count as 2 checks. So this is a manual tracker, so I can't really manually click on the checks here, but yeah, that's an interesting one. Asterisk on that, and maybe once I find out, I'll drop in the description or a comment that confirms that the check up top actually counts as a check for your total amount of checks. But yeah, that always being an Esper at the bottom is an interesting bit of counterplay or like balancing weight to this check. It would get skipped so much more often, if it didn't have that. It's kind of how Phoenix Cave having a dragon is, like one of the things that saves it from needing to be rebalanced and stuff like that. Okay, Mog, the thief sequence. So you have to have Mog unlocked in your group. Does not have to be in your party, but you have to go into the treasure room on the balance side of Narsh. This all takes place on the balance side. Now, interesting thing is that if you go ahead and go up to that room, you can go in there and you can loot all the chests in it. They'll just have the lock chest in the back before you have Mog, and there's no problem with that. But just keep in mind that if you do find Mog later and you want to do this check, that will not count as you being in that room to start the quest sequence. So you have to walk back up in there, see the wolf, get a little screen, pause, and then he'll jump away and run away, and then the check will start, and then you follow it from there, right? He has a number 2 because when you get up to the top, you will see the reward sprite. So it could be a character, it might not once you get up there. And then, that reward will get thrown to the left. He will get thrown to the right. He will tell you the item that he has. He specifically will always have an item. He will never have an Esper or character. The sprite to the side will be a character if it's a character, obviously, like everything else. If it's not a character, it will be, another random sprite. Now, there's no guarantee what that random sprite will be. That could be an Esper, that could be an item, and you won't be able to know that for sure until you pick it up. So if you pick that up, then it'll tell you what it was, and then the other item will fall off with him. Kind of like how Mog would in the vanilla game, right? And then you'd have to wait till you have to go to the other side to pick him up. Now there is some sequences where that item that he has could be so ridiculously good that you'll be like, all right, I'm taking this, and then I'll let that other thing fall. And either way, whatever you decide, similar to the lock decision, the other thing will be waiting for you in Mog's spot in World of Ruin in Narsh on the other side. So you have to walk all the way back through in Narsh on the ruin side and all the way back to where Mog's standing in the Mog cave, and the NPC will be there, with his item, or the sprite of whatever you left from the left side will be there, and you can go grab that, and that counts as another item check in and of itself. That one I know for sure. So there's some interesting like decision making to be made there. And then this Moogle sprite is the Moogle defense. So this check is added in several patches ago now, but it is the newer thing. This is the check that is not tracked in all the other older trackers. And what happens here is that Alvis will be present in the mayor's house or whatever, and you just talk to him, and you'll start the Moogle defense sequence. It'll automatically path you over there. If you're a newer player, I'd suggest saving first before you start the sequence, because you can't get out of it. You can't warp out of any of the balance side of Narsh and all that. But what you can do is you can know for sure, and you can save first. And as soon as you talk to Algus and start the cutscene, you'll see Mog if it's not a different character. And obviously, it can't be Mog because you have to have Mog to unlock this check. And if it's a different character, that character sprite will be the Mog sprite that falls through the floor. Normally, this would be, I think it's Terra or whatever in the vanilla game. So, if it's a character you don't want, and you don't want characters at all, you can, hit a reset. It's one of the save splittable checks. And then lastly, we have Umaro. Umaro's only check is where you find Umaro, which is interesting. That can be a character. Let's see, did I run through any of these here? Yeah, I've already mentioned I've got every check I've gone through. Like I said, if it can't be a character or not. So this can be a character. What's interesting about Umaro's stuff is you can go and do that tri-touch check like I mentioned before, but you can't hop in the little gap without Umaro and then go through that bit of a sequence there. There is a way to peek Umaro's check. So if you're on balance side and you walk forward to the bit where Umaro would come out of the cave and look at you up in the top corner, If there is a character there, automatically on balance side, that character will come to the front and look out the cave. If it's not a character, there will be nothing. It's like no Maro will ever come and look at you. No other character, right? So if you walk past that spot, you will know for sure it's either a character and you'll know what character it is, or it's not a character at all. You'll have that info. So there you go. That's all the checks in the entire game, except for one last one, which is in Kefka's Tower, the toilet seat where Atma Redo fight is at. That actually can be an Esper. However, it cannot be a character. So it's a little bit interesting to go there and gambly to go there. But there are also 2 dragons up there, and there are sometimes when it comes into play. But I will leave all the routing and meta strategy and all that for like an intermediate video. This video is just to get beginners acclimated as much as possible. Okay, so now that we have all that, let me turn this on here. And this is a little tier list. And we're going to go ahead and rock 2 tier lists real quick. So the first tier list I'm going to make for you is going to be based off of what we just talked about. It's going to be based off of the characters' checks. So this is how good the characters' checks are, in comparison to the other characters. Okay. So I'll again glance over why, the characters are, the checks and why they're good and why they're not, or why they're in the middle and so on and so forth. Right. Then after that, we're going to go to the characters like stats and general abilities, away from their actual ability, because those secondary abilities are all randomized. And then I'll briefly chat about the secondary abilities. We'll go through the secondary abilities using the characters themselves. And then I will just talk about all the extra ones at the end, because I couldn't find a tier list that has all the sprites and everything, or like I would have to upload my own images, and I don't want to do all that. I just want to get this out there for people to use as a resource. Okay. So let's just go through. So Celeste, checks, she's a solid A. The only thing she really has going against her is that the opera check is a little bit long. You got to fight through a bunch of stuff that you potentially might not want to. And if you screw it up, you have a long walk back and all that. There's all sorts of bad things that can happen to you along the way. So like, the random enemy encounters can be ninjas or outsiders or level magics and stuff. And if you don't have like extra warp stones or smoke bombs to escape the battles, it gets pretty tricky. But other than that, everything else is really good. She's got a free check. She's got a lot of flexibility in how you can do the Magitech factory. And then the Magitech factory has a really good reward at the end if you already have the Magitech ability. Magitech unlocked is a top tier S tier ability for sure. So, I'd say Pin Celeste, solid A. Cyan, double triple S. This guy's checks are the absolute best in the entire game. He has characters available at all of them. He has the fastest set of checks on rails in the game with the Dream. And then he has another check that's really fast in Doma. And then his last check, the Zozo one, it's easy. It doesn't technically have a boss. And it has an optional dragon if you want to take it on your way, and you can warp out of it. So like in terms of sheer speed and like what's available, science checks are like by far, I think, the best. I don't even think it's close. There's so many unfortunate like missteps and mishaps that can happen to you with some of the characters that have more options and stuff out there. So, Cyan number 1 on checks alone. Edgar. All right. Edgar, I'm going to put it a solid B. Edgar has a great free check. It couples in with a bunch of discount shop checks, but his other checks are not that good. So the cave is peekable, which is nice. But you do have to reset. You have to save split it. It's not just a walk in, walk out type of thing. If you commit to it, it's not the shortest check. It has some decent items along the way, but it's a decent amount of walking. And then after that, you have to walk all the way out. You cannot warp out. You have to watch a cutscene to get out. And then even then, after you walk out of that, the castle resurfaces and you're not by your airship. Your airship is back over by the cave. So you then have to walk on the world map all the way back over to your airship. It just really slows this check down. Then his third check, the one that's under there, suffers from all of the exact same things that I just mentioned. If you don't need the monster in the boxes, if you don't need the dragon, and you're like literally just hunting for espers. If you go down there and it's a character or it's an item, you can't warp out. You have to walk all the way back out. Very, very bad. But the soul, like normally Edgar, if he didn't have his free check, he'd be down here. But that soul strength of his free check alone, and that and that the shopping opportunities that it gives you, just like having him in your party gives you, just I put him. He's going to probably be at the bottom of the B tier, but he's in the B tier for sure. Gao is a C, and the only reason he's a C is because there's multiple characters that have worse options. only a few, but multiple that have worse. Gao's strengths of checks lie in Serpent's Trench, giving you the option to take either, I think it's 5 battles if you go left. I think it's 2 battles up front and 3 battles at the back. So like you can go left, right, and you can go 2 battles into like 1 battle, which is a little slower in terms of how much distance you have to travel and you have to like walk around. But you can also go right, which is even less battles than that, and it's slower, more walking, but you don't have the fights instead. And then it spits you out in Ikea already in the town where you can check all the shops. So that's a pretty good one. And it's also easy to just disregard because it's a little longer. But you don't have to worry about any kind of tricky movement or skips or whatever, and so on and so forth. It's a good check. The Vel check is pretty cool in that it's very quick, but it's also has a bit of RNG to it. The first set of RNG is you have to find dried meat. The second set of RNG is that the sprite that lets you use the dry meat and get the reward does not always spawn. So like sometimes you're just not going to be able to avoid like the RNG of having to fight 2 or 3 battles before the thing actually spawns and you can actually get it done. Also, kind of unfortunate, you have to reduce your party down to 3 characters. So that can sometimes time sync you and lose you just like 30 seconds having to go up the airship and then do the check. And then if you want to grab that 4th character again, if it wasn't a character, you have to reform. And there's like a lot of weird things that can happen. So just unfortunately, the amount of checks and then like the overall things that can go wrong with those checks, C tier, best I can do. Go only has 1 check, and it's the worst check in the game. It's the second worst check in the game. It's the second worst check in the game. It's all RNG. It could be super fast. You don't have to fight a boss. You do sometimes have to reform your party properly to be able to do it quickly, and it can also destroy you. And if you forget to put your Moogle Charm back on to avoid battles when you're walking around with 1 character. But the room with the guys and the little bridges, there's nothing you can do. The game it's pure RNG, coin flips 50-50 whether they walk right or left. The first guy you get by, no problem. There's actually a little trick. If you're holding the button to jump across, you actually can't be knocked off. So you can actually skip the first guy without him being able to do anything to you. And you can get to the south platform in the middle without the guy in the middle being able to do anything to you. The problem is that guy has to walk all the way to the right for you to be able to jump up and go left and continue. And he just loves to go left. He never loves to go right. And there's no third thing you can jump through to get past. You have to jump on, walk left, and then jump up, which you can do. There's some tricks. If you think he's getting a little close and you might want to jump up and then hold down and hold the jump, so you jump up and then right back down immediately. The problem is if he decides to walk right, then you're down here and you want to be on the bridge to walk left. And then if you jump up and he turns, he knocks you off and whatever. You get a small little consolation prize, 2 treasure chests down below. But I've had S plus RNG where I've walked and he's just walked right immediately. That's happened to me literally twice my entire time playing the game. And then I've had times where I'm sitting there for literally 2 minutes straight and he's just sitting on the left. And there's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do. You can get knocked off and reset the room, but theoretically that doesn't do anything to the RNG. It's awful. It's awful. Somehow it's not the worst set of checks in the game because it's only 1 check and it can be a character, but you can skip it. You can fade this check quite often and leave it for last and you're not losing a ton. Usually I have lost races to somebody going to this early and not getting screwed by the RNG. It just exists. If it were up to me, I'd remove this check from the game, or I would at least set a fixed sequence to the guys in the first room, just so people don't literally lose a race to random number generator, but it is what it is, Okay, Locke would be all the way up here if it wasn't for Phoenix Cave. Locke's decidedly in B tier for his checks, unfortunately. His first 2 checks are really good. The tunnel armor, very quick, has a health refill for free if you need it. You can save. peek it and like just do a fight. It's really quick to oh, okay, this is Magic Master, I don't want to be here, reset out, come back later, or not come back at all. Second check, the unlocking of in Ruin Narsh, really good. You get an option. You get to pick an Esper or an item, or between two good items maybe. You can get the item to be the same thing and not actually have a choice. But then also it opens up that thing with the combo with Terra, which is cool, and you can sometimes you can get an extra check out of it for free. However, the last check, Phoenix Cave. Oh man, is this bad. It's probably the second worst check in the game. And the only reason it's the second worst check in the game is because it has a dragon down there. It takes forever. You have to flip back and forth between the two parties. You have to run all over the place, hit puzzle switches, blah, blah, blah. It's awful. It's so, so, so bad. But the other checks are so good that they pull him. He has 2 S tier checks and a D tier check, which is why he lands right bog smack in the middle. Mog is in A tier. Mog's checks are very good. I'd say he's probably almost even with Celeste. He doesn't have any free ones. I guess, well, no, technically the thief is free. You don't have to fight anything. The problem with the thief one is it's a really, really long walk, and it's going to take you past another check, which is the Kefka and Narsh one, which is always open. So it's very rare you're going to want to go up there and not also do that, just to make sure that you don't have to do it later. And that Kefka and Narsh check teleports you back down and saves you the walk back down. If you go up and only do Mog's thief check, you have to walk all the way back down, which is like a minute time loss. So it's pretty rough. But the good thing is that check's usually not too bad, doesn't scale too hard. You can skip all the random battles if you know how to sequence the battle correctly. Same thing with the Moogle defense. You can trigger that whenever you want. Takes you right in. It is a little slow because you got to watch the cutscene. You have to do the battle, but you can warp out of the Moogle defense check. You just can't warp out of the room that it's in. You have to walk back up into the top room, just like that realm one. You warp out of there. It's like the only place you can warp out of on the balance side is that cave below. But his checks are all like kind of like right together in the same place as well, so you can do them all. And if you really need that second reward, you can flip back over to the ruin side. It takes a little while, but you can run to the back. You don't have to fight anything for that as well. Super, super good checks. Yeah, solidly A tier. Realm is, I'd say B. Realm is a case of could be worse. So her first check is peekable. You fly right in. It's peekable right away. You can just walk right out and leave. Her second check is not peekable, but you just walk into a town. You check all the shops in front. You walk to the back. You can open a few chests. You fight a random battle. One random battle that's required. You can skip the other ones. There's a few treasure chests you can open on the way. There's a save point before the boss. You beat the boss. It teleports you back to the front. And you just simply walk out from there. Not too bad. And the 2 checks are pretty close together. Even though they're on opposite worlds, what you can do is you can fly in between them by going across and screen scrolling, and that actually saves you a decent amount of time. So if you need to do both of hers quickly in succession, they're also pretty close to each other on the map. Sabin, he is solidly an A. Probably going to have to put him at the top just because of the amount. So let's go back through his checks. So you got Waterfall, very quick, very good. Imperial Camp, a little slower because it's got the cutscenes, but you don't have to actually fight a boss. You just have to fight some random battles. So this is a prime place to go. If you need some experience, you get some of that real quick. You can see the reward, save split out. Not too bad. Only have to fight 1 battle before you see the reward. Pretty quick. Colts, not good. Long walk. Can't see what it is. There's some chests in there, but that's probably his worst check. Train, really good because you can peek it right away. And it's actually shorter than you think. When you're on regular train, you don't actually have to do any of the puzzles. You just have to walk through the stupid ghosts that get in your way. So, you can get a little NPC RNG blocking you from getting through the cars, but you can just skip everything on your way to the train at the end. And, you can just walk on the outside of a lot of the later cars. And, you see the reward right at the beginning, right? So you can see right away whether or not it's worth it. And then Crumbling House, also a very, very good check. It's right next to being able to check the guy in the forest. You don't have to fight a boss. It's very fast. Timer's turned off in Moogle Cups. You don't have to worry about that. Even if you do want to take the monster in the boxes, bunch of chests in there you can loot. all on your way except for like one, I think, is out of your way. Yeah, just really, really good. Okay, next we've got Big Papa Sets. Let's move him. Let's say, yeah, I think he's actually no. I mean, unlocking Magitech is really really sick, actually. Oh yeah, let me go back to one note about Cyan. The other great thing that really makes the dream checks insanely good is in Moogle Cup you unlock 8 sword tech. It's the only way to unlock cleave, which is 100% hit instant death. So anything that can be instant death will be instant death by sword tech. So if you happen to have sword tech in your party, it's a lot like unlocking Magitech with Celeste's checks. It's absolutely absurdly good. So just another reason why he's the best. But let's go back to our boy Setzer here. So Setzer, he only has the 2 checks, but you can kind of give him credit for a third because again, he can auto take you to the Doomgaze fight, and that fight is guaranteed to not be a character, which is really nice when you're hunting for not characters. And he's got a free check, which is accessible on both places. So no matter where you pick him up, it's not too bad. And his free check on the rune side is literally right next to his other check, which is very easy. You can just walk right through it, fight the boss at the end. It's a little bit of a long walk, but it has a save point at the end. So if the boss is bad, you can save, split out, and come back. There's strategical opportunities there with his stuff. Okay, and then we've got Shadow. Shadow is a tough one. I'm gonna put him in B, and it's probably right about here. And the reason he's a little lower, it's all floating continent. Floating continent is the absolute slowest thing you can possibly do in the game. However, it does have a little bit of a counterbalance in that you get 3 checks, but the fight sequences at the beginning, the bosses in the middle, and at the end, it can be 2 characters, or it can be 3 espers. If you go up there with a party of 3, it's rough if you don't get a character. It literally is a huge pivot point for your entire run. So you're trying to play this game quickly, it's an all-in gamble. His other 2 checks are absolutely phenomenal. Free check with a merchant, ace, a peekable check that sends you to a town where you can get a bunch of chests and check all the shops, ace. But man, floating continent is so bad. It's similar to how Locke is pulled down by Phoenix Cave. Shadow's checks are just unfortunately just pulled down by how bad floating continent is. You don't want all in gambles when you're trying to win a race. You don't want you want to win on skill, not coin flips. And unfortunately, that check in the middle there is just a bag full of coin flips. I'm going to go ahead and put the old man down here at the bottom. Strago is the absolute worst possible character you can get, and it's because all of his checks are just super long, except for Abbott's Rock, which is RNG based, which means it can also be super long. If you get a fast Abbott's Rock, it's awesome, but it can also be super long. Burning House takes forever. It's one of the top avoided checks in the game. Magic Tower, again, it's a huge commitment. It's an all-in play. You can see what's at the bottom, so it's peekable, not that bad, and you get a dragon on your way up. But that item at the top could be completely useless, and it takes a minute and a half, I think, if you have perfect movement to walk all the way up, which means it's another minute and a half or something like that, all the way down. Don't get me wrong. I'd probably have to go and actually time it, but it's long. It's super all in play. And then top it off, Strago himself. Like I'm trying not to take into account like how good the actual character is on top of that, but what makes Strago the absolute worst is he's just one of the worst characters in the game on top of having some of the worst checks. So unfortunately, they did our old man friend dirty here. He's struggling over there. And then Terra, I would put in S, but the problem is she has the river, and the river is super long and it's super terrible, and it's pretty tough. I'd almost even want to add like an S plus, and then I want to put like here. Like, can we do? Yeah, we can do that, can't we? Can I add a row above? S plus. All right, we'll make it like cyan for cyan. Oh wait, no. Hold on. Red, and then this one, make that cyan for cyan. S plus cyan. All right, sorry there. S. There we go. Okay. I'll do this. I'll do this because, and these two are in no particular order. So what Terra unfortunately loses by having the river, which is one of the worst checks in the game. It's super long. There's a bunch of random battles. There's forced you getting off the raft, and you know, thankfully there's some save points there. But if you save, there's no way out. You cannot warp out. Once you jump in, it's awful. So save in a different slot. Like it's just terrible. The thing about her other 4 checks though is overall, if you compare her worst check to Saban's worst check, Colt's is way, way better than the river. But her checks are primo compared to his other 4. So if you compare her 4 to his other 4, train's really long and can be a little bit of a pain, but you can sequence it up front. Zozo is long, but there's you know it's not that bad. There's there's a few chests along the way, and you can warp out at the end, so it's not too bad. So those 2 checks kind of cancel each other out. And then when you compare Welk, Village, Esper Village, Esper Cave, and Mobiz to Saban's best 3, they're just a little bit better. They're just a little bit better. So like and that makes up the ground, and I think you can flip these 2 either way, because Esper Cave, you get the huge loot room in the beginning, you get the EXP switch if you want it, you get more chests along the way, no boss, you walk right out. It's phenomenal. Welk is super fast. You can route it into all the other stuff in Narsh. It also opens the door to, if you find Lock later, going and picking up another item for effectively free. Or if you already have Lock with you, you can grab them both back to back, which is insanely good. And then the Mobiz check is great because it's a tough fight, but it's peekable. And it's peekable to the fact that you know exactly what it is. So it's like the only 2 things that are so I think it's like so yeah, so Saban on Phantom Train is as peekable. So because you can like actually go up to the reward and see exactly what it is. It's that, but it's in a better check, right? So it's like just a battle. You don't have to do the whole walking through the train in a battle at the end. So I think that is just better than what he's got going on. I think the Waterfall and Welk are comparable. They're like right on there, but Welk's a little bit better because it opens that possibility for another check on top. Zozo and Imperial Base are very comparable. Zozo's a long walk with just 1 boss. Imperial Base, short walk, but you have 4 trash fights to get through. And then if you compare like, you know, PB to Crumbling House, you know, being able to peek it is really good. You can peek that Crumbling House before you go in and reset out. You know, they are just so close. It's splitting hairs. Either way is fine. So, you know, however you want to do it, either way, these are equal. These 2 guys, they're equal. S tier is equal in no particular order. I think I have everybody else here in the right order. And then Umaro, I'm going to put Umaro solidly in C. Because Umaro only has 1 check. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put him in B. Is he even better than Ed? No. He goes back down to C. Gogo as well suffers from this as well. So these 3 characters, the worst 3 characters in the game, Umaro, Gogo, Strago. The reason they suffer is because they as characters are also so bad that you don't want to take like any of these characters here, even though they have some bad magic stats or whatever, could be really, really good if you random them into a good ability, right? Or you find the right gear for them or whatever. Or you have the right items that will play into their strengths. You know, physical combat for these 2, you know, magic for the magic knights, you know, stuff like that. Umaro can be very good if he gets lucky and can equip items, but then there's certain fights where you just can't use them, especially the end, because you know you can't control them. Gogo, at least you can control. Stats are crap. Can't raise his stats with Espers, but like he can do all sorts of cool weird things like mimic item throws, which are could be really good. Rods and shields are busted. You know, Strago could roll with a good ability, but he is like half the speed of every other character. And I mean, like, he has half the speed of like an average character. So if you don't have like a speed plus 2 Esper on this idiot, he's just so slow. He takes like 1 turn for everybody else taking 2. It's just so stupid. And then even if you do have a speed Esper and you can speed him up, the only reason he's even worth doing that is if he has a bomb ability. Because if you're just going to cast magic with this guy, again, terrible item selection, terrible equipment selection. We'll talk about that in a minute on the next tier list. But like, you have to sacrifice to being able to raise his magic power or his like HP or whatever to raise his speed. And then if you're going to cast magic, you should just take a different caster that has a high magic stat and then just like give them magic plus espers, or like HP plus espers, or defense, or whatever, or give them speed, and then they'll be even faster and take more turns. It's just unfortunate, you know. So Umaro, only the one check. It's really good because you can route it in with other stuff. It walks past the dragon, and it walks you. You have to go through another free check, which is really good and easy. Sorry, not a free check, but it walks you to another check that's open. So no matter what, Umaro always will put you in a position to do the tri-touch check first. So he kind of has like 2, you know, by default. And you know, he's not as bad of a character, but since there's no RNG with his stupid check like Gogo, I'll put him at the bottom. See, I think this is good. So take a screenshot of this. This is how good the characters are based for the most part solely on their checks. And these 3 have the worst checks in the game, and they're also just the 3 worst characters. You know, they're just so bad, so terrible. So take a screenshot of that if you want. Let's reset this real quick. Is there a way to reset this? Reset. Okay. And I don't think we need an S plus for the characters themselves, but I'm going to run through the characters themselves really fast. So there's a few things that we're going to look at when it comes to these characters. So disregard their ability, because the ability is going to be randomized. So we're looking at what the characters' base stats typically tend to roll as. So do they have good base stats overall? Are they strong in one area? Are they weak in another area? Does it make them less flexible, or so on? And then what kind of gear can they equip at base? So in Moogle Cup, what's going to happen for your gear is your character is going to be able to equip all the gear they normally could equip in the game, period. No exceptions, right? Everybody can equip the Moogle Charm. You start with 3 Moogle Charms, so that's good. So don't worry about any of that. And then you're automatically going to have sprint shoes, so you don't ever have to waste. That's just built in. Sprint shoes is baked in. You're always sprinting. So you don't have to worry about any of that. So after that, every character, for every single equipable item and relic. So some relics are specific; they can only be equipped. So think like Rage Ring, Memento Ring, some of those that are specific. Every character rolls a die, and you have a 45% chance to be able to equip that item. And it rolls a die for every single item that's equipable or in relic. So Celeste, you know, has a really good gear selection base, right? So it's not often that you're going to need Celeste to roll into being able to equip some really good gear. Cyan, however, can only use fencing swords normally in the vanilla game, right? At base. So if you want him to attack with an Illumina or a Valiant Knife, you're going to have to get lucky, and he's going to have to roll into being able to use it. So that is the other factor. The base gear selection, because you can never count on RNG to do the work for you when you really need it. So that's the main thing. Character stats, gear selection. All right, so Celeste. The Magic Knights, I'm just going to go ahead and grab Terra right now. These are the 2 best. They have the best stats, period, all around. They can do it all. They have the best gear selection. They can equip all the best armor, all the best swords. They have high magic, and they have the higher magic stats, right? So their natural magic ability would even factor in here, and they'd be even higher. They'd be in their own tier. But those natural spell lists get shuffled, and then the spell list itself gets shuffled, randomized, and then who gets the naturals also get randomized, you know, amongst the cast. So again, that's not being taken account for here. These 2, in either order, they're amazing. You know, they're the best. Right behind them is Edgar. He has access to all the knight swords and all the best armor as well. He just has a slightly worse stat pool. Base, again, when you roll a randomizer, it's going to randomize everybody's stats. So the status screen is your friend. You can kind of take a look. You can get a little bit lower than their average, or a little bit lower than their stat. You can get a little bit higher. But the ranges are based off the base, what the character has, that base stat. And then you roll from there, right? So, you know, his magic, I think, is a little bit lower than these guys. But again, same gear, flexible character. His magic's not so low that he can't be a caster. He can easily be a really good caster. All right, let's grab Locke next. Locke, solid A. Can use Valiant Knife, probably the best weapon in the game for the final fight. You can argue Illuminas and Ragnaroks are right up there, but they take a little bit more specific equipment to make work. Valiant Knife can work with a Genji Glove or an Offering on its own, and like any other weapon with a Genji Glove. Illuminas and Ragnaroks don't really work with Offerings. They only really work with Genji Gloves. Atma Weapon can work with a Genji Glove or an Offering, but it has a lot of other junk that you have to do, a lot of leveling you have to do, and that's just really hard to do without experience eggs and taking a lot of fights. If you have a faster seed, that becomes less of an option. You also have to keep that character healthy. The more full health they have, the higher percentage the algorithm will do in damage. Valiant Knife, you have to keep the character lower HP, but that's actually surprisingly easy to manage. As long as you can get there, so if you have a way to get there, especially because the entering the last area in the game heals you automatically, which is unfortunate. So you have to get there again. But once you are able to manage that, it becomes really, you really won't even think too much about it. And the good news about the Valiant Knife is if that character dies, you just Phoenix down them or Life 1 them, and they come up with critical HP, which is automatically going to put them at the high end of their damage calculation with Valiant Knife. So like off of Valiant Knife alone, Locke's gear selection is really, really good. He loses out on armor. He loses out on a lot of other weapons, but he can use a lot of the best swords, which is really nice. And he can use all the throwing weapons from the back row. So they're except for like darts. So like there's Full Moon, there's Boomerang, there's Winged Edge. Like all those are pretty decent early game. So he's got some nice stuff. He's got really high speed and good physical. His magic's mediocre, but he's a solid A tier character. Shadow, A tier, good all around stats. Weird item selection. He unfortunately would be a little bit higher, but the ninja swords are actually all really kind of interesting. Like Stunner can stop. He's got the Assassin, which can instant kill. He's got a wide variety of stuff base. His armor selection is a little bit weaker. Again, it's similar to Locke's, but that's not as big of a deal as weapons because everybody can equip all the elemental shields except for Amaro. I think Amaro has to random into them, but yeah, I mean, weapons are really what matters for these characters. Like equipping the best armor is something that boosts you up into this higher tier here because you can notice all the characters that can equip knight armor are all up here, and everybody down here base is not equipping heavier armor. Cyan can equip some of the heavier armor, but unfortunately his weapons are just way worse than these two. So the fencing swords, unfortunately, they're just junk. You don't need to equip a fencing sword to use sword tech in Moogle Cup flags, so they don't really do anything special. They're just stat sticks. And often, if you're going to run with Cyan in the party, he's going to be physically attacking because his magic stat is one of the worst in the game. It's tied, I think, with Sabin as the worst. But the fact that he can equip the better armor often means that he's going to be an A, the very bottom of A. Setzer I would put above Cyan. He can equip a lot of the better armor as well. However, he cannot equip all the best armor. And his weapon selection is kind of interesting. You have Doom Darts, which are pretty cool. You have Fixed Dice, which can be coupled with an offering to do some damage early. And he's not locked out of anything specifically. That's not too bad. I'd say that his stats are really well rounded, so much so better than Cyan's. I might even move Cyan down to the top of B. I think I actually will do that. I think that actually looks better because Cyan's magic stat is just so bad you don't really have an option. Whereas these three, all three of these guys can become casters, and it's not too much of a pain. Gao I'll solidly put in B. The problem with actually Gao probably should go down here. Yeah, probably down here. Gao, the problem with Gao is that he equips a weapon. So the problem with Gao is that he can't equip virtually any of the good stuff at all. But the bonus that keeps him out of D tier is that he can't equip, he normally doesn't equip a weapon in the game ever. And he can roll into equipping a bunch of weapons. And when you do the rage mechanic, which he won't always have, but let's just throwing it out there. When you do whatever special ability uses a weapon, it's going to be a little bit harder for him to use. So he can roll into a bunch of weapons. He will. The problem is that a lot of them probably won't be useful. And if he has two abilities, he doesn't have the fight command either. So if you get two abilities that are both reliant on you having a weapon, like say capture, which is just, fight with stealing and something else. And, he has a weapon. Okay, well now it's just it's a completely random pool of weapons to equip because he normally doesn't equip any weapons at all. And since he can't equip the rest of the stuff, whatever. However, his stats aren't too bad. So he's probably going to sit at the top of this C tier here because his stats are pretty good. And if he rolls with good abilities, he becomes amazing. But we're not really accounting for abilities. Lacking the fight command kind of takes away one of the ways he can play. It basically locks him out of being an actual really decent fighter because without Genji Glove offering in the fight command, you're really kind of stuck. I think if you Genji Glove and like you roll him into capture, you can theoretically fight with him, but it's slower and it's just not something you want to be messing with. Okay, we got here Mog. I think I'll put him. Yeah, I think he's probably gonna go right here. B, because he unfortunately can't use a lot of the best weapons and armor. He can use lances. The Aura Lance is decent. The Pearl Lance is decent. But all the rest of the weapons he can use base are pretty garbage. I think he can use Magus Rod base, which is okay. He's got good stats. The main issue is he's locked out of a lot of the good armor. But there is a couple of pieces of armor that are very, very good that he can use. So Snow Muffler and Behemoth Suit base are very, very good armors that he will always be able to use. So there are outlets for him. Cool thing about Umaro is he comes with his Snow Muffler on. So if you find both of these guys together, you can always just pull the Snow Muffler off of Umaro and give it to Mog, and you're pretty much set on armor. Snow Muffler being the best option because it absorbs some elements. Let's see who's next. Realm. We'll put Realm into B. I think she's probably better than both of these characters just because her magic stat is so high. It's really high. It's up here at the Magic Knight level. The reason she's down here is because her gear selection absolutely sucks. The best item she can equip for sure is Cat Hood. But then for weapons, she's stuck with brushes. There's one really good brush. I think it's the Da Vinci brush. There's a couple brushes that raise your magic. They just don't raise your magic as much as the Magus Rod, which a bunch of characters can equip, and the Enhancer Sword, which you can't equip base. So her magic's really good. She'll always be able to cast for you. The rest of her stats are pretty bad though. So that's why I can't put her in A. But you could probably make an argument that these two are pretty much evenly matched, kind of like these two are evenly matched, right? Yeah, that's pretty good. Go Easy D. I mean, he just can't equip anything on top of his other issues with abilities. He is flexible, but his stats are just bad. So Umaru, same thing. I mean, obviously. Sabin, I'm just going to echo everything I said about Gao, except I'll put him above just because of the weapons and stuff. He can use some claws. There are some claws that are useful, especially early game. Poison Claw and Fire Knuckle come to mind. He's got a couple claws that are Pearl elements, which isn't that good, but it's usable. His main problem is that his weapons are even worse than Cyan's, and he has as bad of a magic stat, and he has a worse armor selection. He has the worst armor selection down with, Gao and all that, and it's just really bad. And then Strago, we'll put Strago like right here. Strago, oftentimes is worse than Gogo. Sometimes he's better. Again, all the stuff I mentioned before about his speed being so low. You get a Shock Strago, you can kind of make it work, but you have to sacrifice upping his magic stat and everything. It's just a wonky situation. His magic stat is serviceable. Everything else is garbanzo. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, go ahead. This is again based off of abilities. Or sorry, not based off of abilities. This is based off of the character's stats, base stats, like where they roll, and their gear selection based, any character's gear selection can roll really well, and then they can all of a sudden be like super useful, right? Like if Sabin can use an Illumina, okay, great. You can stick him in the back row so the bad armor won't hurt him, and he can use his high strength to just swing from the back row and deal, full damage from the back row. He's just going to do a lot less damage on the Pearl proc because he has a shitty magic stat. But yeah, that's kind of like this based on that. All right, we're going to reset again, and lastly, we're going to talk about abilities. So I'll just go through all the basic abilities first, based off of each character, and then we'll talk about the rest of them at the end that get added into the game. Now, when I talk about the two abilities in the game that can be transformed, so Steal and Capture and Slot and GP Rain, I'm only going to be talking about the first one. Let me just say this up front. Capture is worse than Steal. because it takes longer to animate. If you're trying to steal something like a Minerva off of the Pugs fight, you want to just steal the thing and then just continue. Um, the basic attack added to steal doesn't do anything, like almost always. So, because if you fail to steal, you want to try to steal again, and killing the enemy will kill them, so you can't steal from them again. So I'm just not even going to talk about capture. It's bad. GP rain, I will talk about at the very end, but when I rank Setzer, I'm going to rank slot because they are so radically different. And one is super, super useful, and one is medium useful in niche situations. So those will be talked about separately. Umaro doesn't have an ability, but I'll talk about his things that he can do and what he unlocks with his relics. And then Gogo will just talk about, like, talk about the ability to clone things, but I'll leave him till the end as well because he can't copy everything. He can't copy any of the special abilities that are added in, like Magitech and Shock. Okay. All right. So first on the docket, we've got Runic. Runic's probably going to be somewhere at the bottom of C. This is useful when it is because, it's early game and you don't have magic, but the enemy does. There's a lot of stuff that Runic doesn't absorb, and you have to use it every turn, so it locks that character down. There's just a lot of disadvantages to it. It's not good. Sword Tech is probably one of the best. It's probably the best vanilla ability because it just does a lot of different things and it does them all well. It has a very good ignores defense attack on 1. It has a serviceable multi-hitting attack on 4. Doesn't ignore defense, unfortunately. And then on 5, it has basically the ability to heal you and regen you if you need it. On 6, it has an AoE magic attack. On 7, it has attack number 4, but higher power and ignores defense now. And then on 8, it has perfect instant death. You do have to unlock 8 by going through the Cyan Dream, but that's a set of checks if you have available to you, you're going to want to do anyway in almost every scenario. Like unless you're searching for your last character and you already have all your espers and Cyan's the last character, that's about the only time you would go through it. The good thing about Sword Tech is it unlocks levels 1 through 7 naturally through you leveling as well. So if you end up going super late game and you find Cyan too late to go and get Sword Tech 8, you'll still likely have 6 or 7, and 6 or 7 are very, very good to supplement, your combat, your melee combat and your magic and stuff. Phenomenal ability. Tools. Absolute stone cold S tier. Only reason it's not better than Sword Tech is because of the RNG of it all. And because the air anchor is also perfect instant death on enemies that can be instant death. Well, that can be physically instant death. I guess there's 2 different kinds of instant death. There's magic instant death and there's physical instant death. Like Calmness, that stage 3 of Kefka's end game fight. That's a physical instant death that can be evaded, blocked, parried. Air Anchor will not hit certain enemies like that can be instant death. So like you can instant death Senior Behemoth with Doom, right? The second one. You can instant death some bosses with Doom effects. Some of those same bosses that you can only do with magic instant death, you cannot physical instant death, so you can't air anchor them. But all that being aside, Tools has some very, very, very great options. The problem is in Moogle Cup V2, you only start with 1 tool in your inventory, and then where they're sold is random. So if you don't find the best tools or you don't find them in chests or whatever, you just won't have access to them. Whereas, like, a lot of other abilities, this is not the case. I think Throw is the only other ability like this, and Throw has so much utility, above and beyond, that isn't as bad because you can always throw like weapons and stuff that you have laying around instead of selling them, as opposed to like having to find shurikens, having to find fire skeins, stuff like that. So, tools. Let's just go through them real quick. Auto crossbow, very good. Physical AoE. Flash, same thing, but magic. Super good early game. Usable late game if you have the corresponding stat pumped to the high heaven. Bioblaster, super useful because poison is rare. There's only 2 poison spells in the game. There's not many weapons that poison, like Poison Claws, like I think one of the only ones. Maybe there's like one more. There's a bunch of enemies that are actually weak to poison, which is hilarious. So Bioblaster works really cool. Noise Blaster, pretty niche, but it has one very specific use, and that's instant killing Katana Soul in Monster in the Box. So if you're looking for an offering and you're taking Monster in the Box chest because offering will unlock the whole game for you, if you have a Noise Blaster, you have a guaranteed way to confuse Katana Soul, and he'll immediately instant death kill himself. You can also accomplish this with the Muddle spell, but it's the only spell in the game that does that. And finding specific spells on Espers is very rare. It's very hard to find Mute. It's very hard to find Quick. It's very hard to find Muddle. Whereas like Fire, there's Fire 2, Fire 3, Fire 1. There's other things like Merton. There's other ways to get things done. Like that auto confuse is pretty interesting. Chainsaw and Drill is super good. Ignores defense, single target, selectable target. So like Dispatch with Cyan, it hits a random target. Pummel with Saban's Blitz hits a random target. So Edgar's Drill hits the target you want. Same thing with Chainsaw. The only problem with Chainsaw is 25% of the time it will use an instant death attack, which is not what you want. Very rarely that'll be a benefit, but often it'll be a detriment. Debilitator is completely useless. We've already talked about Air Anchor. Air Anchor is super good for the last fight. There's 2 different enemies that are susceptible to physical instant death in stage 1 and stage 2, and Air Anchor doesn't need to charge to level 8, so it's arguably even better than level 8 Sword Tech, which hits all enemies, and there's only 1 enemy in each fight. The thing is, it's still tough to say like which is better, which is not, because even though those 2 are guaranteed instant death, you can always use the instant death spells because both the enemies in the last fight are susceptible to both forms of instant death. So it's hard to say based on the instant death alone which one of those is better, because you have to luck into finding Air Anchor, and then you'll know whether or not you're going to find Cleave based off of finding Cyan or having a character, and then also having a character with Sword Tech. So, but tools in general, super good. It's sometimes even worth buying a tool if you're like flush with cash. You only have 5 or 6 characters, and you think you might replace a character that if you find the tools, you might just buy a Drill or an Air Anchor. I think none of them are. I think Air Anchor is the most expensive one. I don't think it ever rolls above 10K, so that's not too bad. So if you're flush with cash, you can speculatively buy tools. The only thing is, when you speculatively buy stuff, you price yourself out of buying. You can accidentally price yourself out of buying really good stuff like shields, rods, and other S tier items. Okay, what do we got next? Rage. I'll put solidly in B tier. And the reason it's in B tier is because there's 5 or 6 absolute S tier rages. The thing is, the rages you get are random, and then if you encounter enemies, you will learn their rage, but there's not a lot of taking of random battles in the game. For an early grind, when required by checks, but we don't typically run around just grinding random battles. And grinding random battles and finding enemies that have really junk rages that aren't any good doesn't do anything for you. So there you go. Steel I put down here in C tier. The only real reason to steal is if you know the enemy, it's like a boss enemy that has something that's really good that you can steal, like Pugs, where you can steal Minerva. That's pretty much all there is to say about it. Also, in the base, MC Flag Steel follows its algorithm and is based off of your level. So when you're really low level, you're going to find it very, very hard to steal anything, unfortunately. Dance, another C tier ability. This can be much better, but all the dances are randomized in Moogle Cup. So you can go into the menu and look, but you're going to see a sequence, and then once you see a good dance that has 4 decent abilities, or maybe like one ability twice and all that, you can try to use that dance, but then again, you lose control of your character, and it's going to be completely random which ones it selects in a row. Not completely random. The first dance has like a higher percentage. The 2 in the middle have like a medium, and then the 4th one has like a lower one. That's how the math works. You can look up a guide on how exactly that works, but almost never use dance. It's desperation early game. It's typically the only time you're using it. Sketch is another C tier ability. It only has a few rare uses. There's some enemies, when you sketch them, it uses a really good ability and blows them out, and then most of the time when you sketch them, it just does a physical attack and does nothing. Control, very similar. I don't need to rank these separately. They both have their super niche uses, and they both, like learning a lore off of them sometimes. But it's super rare that ever really comes up. Okay, Blitz. Blitz is an top of A tier ability. A lot of people will say Blitz is S tier. I do want to put it there. The problem I have with it is that in order to get the most out of Blitz, you got to get Bum Rush. And to get Bum Rush, you have to either already have Blitz and then find the train and then suplex it, which is cool, or you have to go out of your way and watch a cutscene and get Blitz, and get Bum Rush that way. And the main problem with Bum Rush is it's not that hard of an input to do. I don't want to like say that it is, but it is going to be a little bit trickier for newer players that are not like don't have a fighting game or action platform background to do a full 360 on the controller. And then also it is random. It targets a random target. So, there's a lot of bosses where there's different parts of the boss that you want to hit a specific part. And, when you blitz, you ain't going to hit it. It just never works out that way. But it does have a bunch of good stuff. So it has a holy attack, which is nice. Sometimes that's really handy. It has pummel, which ignores defense, pretty solid. Airblade, AoE wind attack, and Fire Dance, AoE fire attack. Both of those are pretty handy. And then there's also the healing spell Mantra, which heals all the party members but the person doing the blitz, which sometimes comes in clutch. What's really good about it is it cures some status effects. So it can really come in clutch on like the end game fight, the last fight, if you get a character blinded by accident because you didn't count correctly on stage 3 of Kefka. You can purge off the dark status, which is fixed in the randomizer and actually works and can, keep your melee fighters from hitting. So pretty decent ability. I think that there's a few too many shortcomings though for it to be a true S tier ability. All right, so Setzer Slot. Slot is a B tier ability if you don't understand how Slot works. If you understand how Slot works, it's an A tier ability because you know that there's times when it's safe to go ahead and use it and screw up, and when there's times when it's not safe to use it if you screw it up, so you can ignore it and be like, all right, I'm good. And the reason for that primarily is that you can absolutely totally screw yourself with Slot. Now, in the game, Joker Doom is removed. So it's just gone. So you can't do that. But you can accidentally summon an Esper that kills your party. So if you get triple bar, you don't automatically lose. You do a random summon from all the Espers in the game. And that's totally fine unless, you happen to hit the wrong element and it heals the boss you're fighting, or you hit Ragnarok and it transforms you into like an item. So there you go, right? If you hit 7s, you get like some kind of mega flare that's a really good attack. And if you actually understand and are very good at the execution of Slot, it is an S tier ability, because if you're good at the execution of Slot, you can get whatever you want. You can get triple 7s, you can get triple bars, you can get triple crystals for a really good AoE attack that's non-elemental magic damage. And if you can do that, Slot becomes S tier. So what I'll do is I'll split the difference and I'll put it in A, because it doesn't quite have the utility of these abilities up here. But if you can use it correctly, it is insanely good. But there is some risk. So keep that in mind. Throw, definitely an S tier ability. The only thing that Throw doesn't have going for it is, again, randomized stuff that you have to find in shops. But if you find a shop that has shurikens in it, you buy a stack of them every time, because Throw is that good. Shuriken, Ninja Star, Tack Star, ignore defense. Ninja Stars are a little bit more expensive, but they can be affordable mid-game. If you already have a character with Throw in your party and you haven't found Shurikens, it's usually worth leveraging all your money to buy a stack of Ninja Stars. And then on top of that, you couple in the ability to farm, or to find 3 different AoE elements. So fire and lightning, which are the 2 most commonly used that the enemies are weak to in the game. Water, a little bit less common than something's weak to water, but it's also an element that a lot of stuff doesn't absorb specifically. So it's good generic magic against a lot of boss fights. Then you have the Invis Edge, which can actually just, oh, hey, you didn't find the Vanish spell? You have no way to make your character, be able to skip calmness and not die? Hey, look, Invis Edge, woo! I did it. I invis myself, and then I attacked, and I got us past calmness, or at least I kept my one character that's like my really strong attacker, right? It's and then again, you can leverage all the weapons that you find that you don't want to sell, or or I'm sorry, that you don't need to sell. You can throw them. I think especially the spears do a little bit extra damage. Um, but yeah, like throw is just super insane. It's always good to see throw in any seed. Lore is solidly B tier. And again, lore is all about what lores you random into. There's two really, really, really insanely good lores. Grand Train and Quasar. They rip. They are Ultimas, but they don't have as long of animations. Now they don't have as quite as high of a multiplier as Ultima, but I believe they also have slightly less MP at base. So like, everything's randomized again, but Ultima, pretty good spell. Non-elemental magic damage, there's nothing in the game that absorbs it. So like there's some things that can take 0 damage, and then there's other, and if something can take damage at all, non-elemental magic damage will damage it and go through whatever the heck it's shields up or whatever. I think maybe one of the statues that puts up the barriers can put up a non-elemental barrier. I don't remember ever even seeing it though, but I think that might be like the one thing. But yeah, it's so super good. What are some other good lores? Big Guard's okay. Aqua Rake is fine. Blowfish has some tech. There's a few different things that have like counterplay. Stone. Trying to think like. Pearl Wind is not bad. It's a good heal. There's some things that have some counterplay. But it all depends on what you learn, and you really don't want to be getting hit with Grand Train to learn Grand Train. So maybe sometimes you can control something and learn Pearl Wind or what like whatever. But it doesn't line up. So like sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really bad, and that's why it's in the B tier, just like Rage. Morph is solid C tier. So it's useful early game sometimes if you have like it on a high speed character. You can morph, get better stats. You just have to remember you're sacrificing a turn to morph, and then you will unmorph when the gauge runs out, and that kills whatever action you had queued when that happens. So like if you're morphing, you want to be able to get 3 to 4 turns out of having the extra boost to your stats and stuff. And oftentimes it just doesn't do what you need it to do, and we pretty much ignore it. It's also really bad if you want to take a character into the Coliseum. They're almost always going to use it because I don't know why. The AI just loves using it, and then they're just going to use items and shit and not benefit from it for like the next 3 turns. It's hilarious. But it does have some niche uses. You almost never turn it on late game. It's there, but it's not actively bad. So there you go. Go-Go is an interesting one. Mimic, we'll just grade Mimic. Mimic when it's good is insane. Mimic can mimic Ultima casts. It can mimic Super Ball throws. It can mimic breaking a rod on somebody's head or breaking a shield on somebody's head. It can mimic a quadra slice. It can mimic a perfect slot roll. It can mimic a thrown item without using a consumable. But Go-Go is just a terrible character, and the package that he comes with is just really bad. And unfortunately, Go-Go's other gimmick, like I mentioned, it can only copy the abilities that it's programmed to copy, which are all the abilities that are mainly in the game. So you can't give him shock, you can't give him Magitech, unfortunately. You can't give him GP Rain or control or capture without equipping the appropriate accessory. If for some reason there's like a sequence of events lead you to want any of those things. GP Rain, there's some cases where you'd want to take that because you have no other AoE. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me then talk about Umaro. Umaro's abilities are fine. He can cast Storm if you give him the Blizzard Orb. With the Rage Ring, he gains the ability to throw a character and ignore defense. So those are cool. But unfortunately for him, those accessories are often better utilized on other characters to make them immune to fire or ice. And, you're not typically going to be using Umaro very much in the game because you can't control them. If you do find them, though, it's a bonus to equip some of them for the Coliseum because, the Coliseum is all randomized as well, so you can find some really good gear in the Coliseum that way. But, other than that, you're just going to hopefully find other characters that random into being able to equip Rage Rings and equip them because they're really, really good. So yeah, there we go. That's all the base abilities. Now there's a couple extra abilities. Magitech, I think I already talked about a little bit in the checks and all that, but Magitech is a Stone Cold S. Even if you don't upgrade it, Heal Force is a single target cure 3. Cure spells are often not even found because there's only 3 of them in the game, and you know they're spread randomly across all the espers. Typically, you're only going to see 9 espers in a Moogle Cup run, sometimes 10, and you know you just often don't find healing. There's a lot of ways to get around healing without healing, but Heal Force is actually preferable to the health ability, and I would strongly take that as well as the ability to cast a single target beam on a lot of stuff for all the 3 base elements. And I believe the beams go through Reflect, which is pretty great because they're not actually magic spells; they're abilities. So you know, Reflect only hits spells. Then when you upgrade Magitech, it's insane. Like it has an instant death attack, it's got a Bioblaster equivalent attack, and then it's got Tech Missile, which is ignores defense, does magic damage, and then puts the seizure status on the enemy, which is basically a poison that you can't get rid of. It's really really good, and its animation is very fast as well. So super insanely awesome ability. S tier. Shock S tier. Guaranteed to hit. Can't miss. It is magic damage. It's non-elemental, and it does double damage to a single target. So if you know it's great AOE clear early, and then if you are using it against single target, guess what? It does double damage, just like a fire spell or a lightning spell would do. If you spread it out, it does like half or whatever. But if you single target, it goes boom, blows things out. Gets scales up with magic, like many of the magic based abilities do. So like most of the blitzes, you know, the stunner, sword tech, the magitech stuff that we just talked about. So you can scale it up. It's really good. Kind of falls off in the very last fight, but if you're scaling up magic, you're gonna probably have some decent spells by then on that character, and you're just gonna do some dope stuff. So solid S tier. GP Rain, I would put in the C, probably high C, low B tier. It is good early. It is non-elemental AOE damage. The only problem is it reduces your money, and you got to have money to be able to use it. So it does have some niche cases where you can use it and it works out, but a lot of times it just ends up being not so great. Health, the ability that Bannon has is in the game, and I would put it in B tier. It is basically like casting a Cure 2 to your party. I think it does scale off of magic, but it doesn't scale as well as the actual magic. I think it's like casting Cure 1.5 is like about the scaling of it. It's okay. It becomes decent. The problem is when you get into the end game strats and you often have Valiant Knives in play, healing your Valiant Knife user because you have to heal your whole party is not advisable. A lot of times you'll have a character get hit for like 3,000 or 4,000 damage, or you know, like maybe less if you have some good armor, and you'll want to just heal that character. And a single target Cure 2 is going to do you much better than a forced AoE. You know, there you go. And I'm racking my brain for any other abilities that I may have missed that are added in. I don't think there's any more. I think that's pretty much it. Hmm. Yeah, leap is not in. You learn rages by just fighting the enemies, like encountering them and fighting them anywhere, not just on the Veld. So yeah, that's not in there. Possess is banned because it's super OP. So possess, that's from the Ghost on the Phantom Train. Basically, if a character uses it, like the way it's coded in, they will instant kill any enemy, and then it just puts them back on the airship. That's how. So you have to go back and get them, but like you can just blow out like everything. So it's kind of insane. So it's basically it's a banned. It's not in Moogle Cup. I can actually take a quick look real fast here just to double check and make sure that I'm not missing any abilities by just looking at the actual settings, command settings. Okay, so we are adding in all right. Let's see, we went through all that. Oh, jump is a command. Yeah, jump. So jump is interesting in that you can roll jump as your command instead of replacing it with the dragoon boots as a command. Jump has one really niche use. It's okay normally, but it really comes into play when you can find a dragon horn, and then you have a weapon that really can benefit from hitting multiple times. It doesn't hit multiple times because the dragon horn will make it hit multiple times. So like fixed dice is a really good example. So jumping with dice can end up being pretty good. I think everything else that we've gotten through. Oh, X Magic is the last one. X Magic, I'd put solid B tier on X Magic. The problem with X Magic is it's and the gem box relic is that when you get the double magic cast, it doesn't actually like give you an uninterruptible sequence of casts. So like when you cast that spell, you're not taking the same turn when you cast a second spell. You're effectively taking a second turn. So like bosses can interrupt you, bad things can happen, and so on and so forth. The quick spell says screw everybody else. Everyone else is time stopped. I get to take my 2 actions. And not only that, quick doesn't only let you cast 2 magic spells. Quick will let you fight twice, do a command twice, a mix of those things, use items twice. It's pretty ridiculous. So the quick spell is just so much better. X Magic, it can come into play. If you have all your eggs in one basket and your character has Ultima and you want to cast Ultima and you wait trick it up or whatever, there's things that you can do with it. But it's just not like uniquely good enough to be up like in a higher tier than B tier. All right, so that's all the abilities in the game. There you go. I'm sorry that this screenshot isn't as good. Maybe one day I'll revisit this and add images for each of the abilities, and then like we'll actually pump it out. But I just wanted to get something that was a little bit condensed for beginners. I know this is a little bit long, hitting around 2 hours, but there's so much info. And if you know the base game well enough, you know where all the stuff is in each world, and you kind of are familiar with the characters and how the Esper system works and how the game systems work and all that, how the menus work. This will get you going. This will answer a lot of all the basic questions of like, why is this really hard? I don't know what to do next, so on and so forth. Use a tracker. Check out the wiki, set up an auto tracking system. Like I said, it's really cool in that the tracker, when you auto track it, we'll have all of the checks, in this dark gray sequence like this, right? In this dark gray. And then when you get the character, that gray will lighten up like this. And then you'll see, oh, these are all open now. And then, it'll fill in when, you've gotten it. So like most trackers for randomizers work like this. It's a really good sequence. I kind of almost wish though that like it was a little bit more filled in so you could see stuff when it was fully grayed out a little bit better. But you'll get used to it. I switched to this tracker for a Moogle Cup tournament and I got used to it pretty quickly. So yeah, there you go. There's the Moogle's beginner's guide to like all the base stuff in the game that you would want to learn if you want to start trying to pick up the pace, play fast, play solid, and give yourself the best chance, to complete seeds quickly. So there you go. Maybe we'll revisit an intermediate video sometime in the future. But I've got a marathon to practice where I'll be playing this. And there'll be links to that in the description if you want to check that out live in this June. All right. Take care, everybody. Tony Ortiz signing off. We'll see you in the next one.